Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Chris, this is Restoration Rescue. Welcome back to another Saturday. And in today's video, we're gonna be building this Chevy 305 small block. All right guys, so we just picked up the engine last week from the machine shop. So we're gonna talk a little bit about what he did and what we got from the machine shop. So we can see right here that they did a little bit of a bore job because our pistons, the piston bore was a little out of round on a couple of them. They were very close to the clearances. So he recommended a 30 over bore, so that's what we did. He also hot tanked it and it looks beautiful. He put the camshaft bearings in, okay, as you can see right here, which is a huge pain and a huge relief that he took care of that. But what we're gonna come over here is that he polished our crankshaft, which looks absolutely amazing. He did some stuff with our heads, made our valves sit a lot better. We also have a brand new camshaft, as you can see. We also picked up, because we did the 30 over bore, we got some brand new pistons, which look amazing. He also put the wrist pins in and pressed them in because they are a big process that is a little over my head. So then also what came in this whole kit is we got piston rings, lifters, bearings, timing, and all of our gaskets for the whole thing. And we got some assembly lube. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna hop over this engine, we're gonna flip it over, and we're gonna start getting ready for the crankshaft. All right guys, so what we're gonna do now is you can see that all the caps are on it. They're all in a specific spot. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take those off, then we're gonna come over here and grab our bearings, and then we're gonna seat our bearings. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna set the crank in, we're gonna torque it all down. We're gonna use a little bit of plastic gauge to see what our clearances are to make sure that this engine is round and good to go so that we can start building a nice, healthy engine. So let's go ahead and knock that out. All right guys, so that is all our bearings and our rear main seal. We're gonna talk about the rear main seal real quick before we talk about the bearings. So as you can see, it's not all the way up to the lip here. And what we were doing research and talking to some people who are in the engine building community, this is a good spot to put it because there's less area for it to leak. So we're gonna put some lube there or some silicone gasket maker and seal this up. So now we're gonna go back here and we're gonna talk about these bearings. So as you can see, we're gonna look right here on this one right here. You can see that there's a little cutout, and in each bearing there's a cutout, and on the top cap there'll be one matching, and then you put it together. So we have to have all those lined up because that's where that's how they line up and hold tight. You wanna make sure that they are flush, the bearings in each place, okay? So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna pick up our crank and we're gonna place it in our engine. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna come over here, we're gonna grab some plastic gauge because we wanna make sure our gaps for our clearances are perfect for this engine so they work out amazing. So we're gonna put it down, we're gonna put a little bit of plastic gauge on each bearing where it is. Then we're gonna torque it all down, we're gonna check our clearances, and then we're gonna re-torque it down and we'll be done with the crankshaft. All right guys, so what we're gonna do now is we are gonna torque these down, okay? So the way you do it on an engine like this is you do these in stages. So these three are about 70 pound-foot of torque. The outside is 65. You don't wanna go out and blast them all at 65 right away. So what we do is we start on the centers and the outsides at a specific torque. So what we're gonna do is on the centers, we're gonna do 30. Then we're gonna come to the outers and do 25. Then we're gonna come back, we're gonna do it again, but 50s on the centers, 45 on the outsides. And then the last pass, 70, and then 65 on the outside. So let's go ahead and let's torque this thing down. All right, guys, so we left off with us torquing this thing ready down to spec on the first pass, so that's exactly what we did. Then we take the breaker bar, we tear it all down again, we pull out our crankshaft, put it to the side, and then we look at the caps, and in the caps is where that plastic gauge is gonna sit. And the plastic gauge, what we're gonna do is you can kind of see it how you're supposed to measure it right there if you can. Can you see that? Okay, so you can see that you use it and you measure it, and we put it in like that and measure our clearances, but obviously it would be more on this, but under the cap, so we made sure ours was good to go. So then after that, what we do is we come out and we take the crankshaft out, we go all to our bearings, and we put the assembly lube. And the reason we use assembly lube on our engines is when you start it up, it's gonna be completely dry. With the assembly lube, this is gonna give some lubrication so there's not metal on metal contact. When the oil comes in, this will get pretty much dissipated. It eliminates dry starts. That's the main thing that we want to do because it's going to make our engine last longer, and that's it. So when we're done with that, we bring the crank right back to the engine, and we again torqued it all down to spec. And just to make sure that we explain this correctly, is that you do it in stages. So when we torque everything down in stages, we started with 30, 50, 70 on the 3 middle caps, and 25, 30, 45, 65 on the end, because 65 on these two and 70 on this one. So just make sure when we put your engine back together, or when we're putting our engine back together and you guys are putting your engines back together, make sure each cap stays in the correct spot. You can see on ours, we have little dimples that the machine shop was nice enough to put in, so we know exactly where our stuff goes. But guys, that's gonna be a wrap for today's video. Thank you for joining us on another Saturday. We can't wait to see you again next week. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe, because we'll be knocking out the pistons.